The 25th Hour Radio Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 25th Hour Radio Show today. I am your host, Rob Fairless, and today on the show I have Grammy Juno Award-winning singer-songwriter Alannah Myles. Alannah, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Alannah, let's start the show off like this. As far as your earliest memory that you have, what was your initial attraction to music?
My family had a farm up north where the people can see the cabin where I wrote and sang songs in the cabin that is featured in the Black Velvet video from Big Bald Lake Ranch in Buckhorn, which is no longer in the family. It was sold last year. Anyway, I'd take my horse and I'd go out into the bush, and there was 1,500 acres, and I would travel along, and I would step onto a gravel road, and I'd hear the echo of the hooves clickety-clacking. They were my first drum loops.
Really?
A trot with and was a waltz. So unfortunately, you couldn't do a slow canter. It's a three beat, but there's 1 2 3 1 2 3 1, and I think that's where I got my first inspiration into music. And I would sing songs I'd heard on the radio, or I'd write them there. Now,
correct me if I'm wrong, because I have to get a lot of my information from the internet. And we all know you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But from what I have read, you started solo gigging around 18 years old. And
around 19 years old. I did some, gong shows or some kind of situations. They didn't have very much to offer back in those days. So I did what I could to get some experience in front of a crowd. And then basically, rustled up a set list and an agent, and put some speakers in a cabinet with a monitoring system, and lugged my stuff around and went and got myself gigs and did a folk gig.
When I was 18, I'd never been able to get up in front of a crowd and do anything.
I might have been a little older. When I was 18, I was probably working at the Key Man in the mall. I probably had a job to pay for the gas in the car. But by the time I was about 19 or 20, I think that's when I said, enough of this crap. I'm going to be, a musician if it's the last thing I do, and this is the way to do it. So I just inherently knew that if I was going to do something, I needed to get out there and experience what it was like.
For people who might not know, you also worked in television and film before you really solidified yourself as a recording artist. How much of, if any, I guess, of Alannah Myles, the actress, was brought into your musical performance,
Well, I have to say all of it, because I studied acting in Second City workshops and various comedy and acting workshops, basically to hone my craft at being who I intended to become.
Now, was there ever a period of adjustment for you that you had to go through once you started to becoming recognized for your music? I mean, during that first initial...
Well, mostly it was a huge adjustment going from being an actress for making an income of about 28 years ago, 27 years ago, roughly 26. I was making about $60,000 a year as an actress in commercials and wherever I could get a job.
That's really good, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So inflation, let's say that'd be about that'd be a good 100,000 or more now.
Yeah, very successful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was very successful, but that prevented me from anyone believing that I was going to be a singer, because they just didn't see it. They didn't. The demos didn't matter, and nobody would sign me. I was rejected, and I was getting a little older, so. Than what one might expect, the journey was getting a little longer and tougher. I had to be very determined, and basically I figured, well, this is the way I'm getting my videos are right around the corner, and the more successful you are at video and deploying your method of artistry, then the more successful you'll be, because that's where they're going. So I've honed my craft, and then suddenly, after doing a 3-song demo, we spent $100,000 on, of masters. We shopped it through Bob Roper at Warner Music Canada. We shopped through all the major labels in Canada at the time, and Warner Music, Bob Roper sent it to all of the affiliates of Warner, say, I can't remember who they all are now. They're all different now. There were about 5 or 6 of them. And Atlantic picked me up, and a month later, I had a deal signed and was taken on by Ahmed Erdogan's head of A&R, Trinja Aram, who sent us back home to Toronto to write and record until late spring release in Canada in '89. And then we migrated to the rest of the world as a result of a woman at Atlantic Records named Fran Lichtman. But that's after the fact. Once I'd been signed by Atlantic, I was making my living as an actress, and I had made a decision to stop everything. And it was really hard to stop taking the money for the jobs. It was really hard not to have any money and to live on $2,000 for a year while I lived on tuna salad sandwiches to make records, and drop everything and be there for every tiny little guitar bar. In the crafting and sculpting, and it was my baby. It was mine.
Like you said, that had to be really hard to give up that amount of money, because you really didn't know what was going to happen, correct? I mean...
Not really, no. I gave it all up. It was a huge sacrifice, but I just knew now was the opportunity. I wasn't going to get another one. So now would be the time to invest all you've got in what you've been given. And I hadn't been given much more than paying the rent and stacking up, thousands of dollars on my Visa card to pay for the wardrobe so I could go out and be successful. I figured, well, no, this is challenging and it's what I want to do. So I invested my own money, my own time, my own faith, and I was determined. So I eventually... once we got rolling, it was a very difficult time because you can't take a job and be absent from the job. You got to make up your mind. So I really had to do a cold turkey.
Now, was being Alannah Myles the performer, was that at the top of the list, or was being Alannah Myles a songwriter?
Initially, I wanted songwriting. Initially, I wanted to be a songwriter. All along, I wanted to be a songwriter. But I was also aware that as we pushed me harder and harder, as I pushed myself harder and harder, and my demands on my time in the studio doing take after take after take after take, like thousands of takes, made me a better artist, singer, stylist, and I learned how to sing, or at least sculpt a great track, so that I could apply my voice and take on larger challenges, and probably larger than I was writing. I didn't write Black Velvet. I sculpted it with my voice. It was shelled out by Christopher. He didn't write the melody. He wrote the actual concourse of the song. But if you listen very carefully, a lot of those melody choices are very blues-oriented and jazz-oriented and chosen at random by me while recording.
Now, do you gravitate more towards the blues? I mean, even before you became a performer, before you got your name out there, like you mentioned the artist earlier, but a lot of your songs are so bluesy and so sultry.
I went through another change after, there were many changes after the folk era, with the R&B era with Four Tops and Aretha Franklin and Ann Peebles and, Smokey Robinson and I was never a Zeppelin or if anything, I was a Stones fan. Mm-hmm. I loved R&B music, and I incorporated that into my music. But then around the 80s, it was really inappropriate, or it was really dated. It was called retro, to do anything R&B or black, gospel black, anything soul like that. It was just not... a blues song was never going to hit the top of the charts. So I used the style of the music that I loved from black artists, African American, but back then they were black.
Oh, yeah.
And sang them as best I could, like Mavis Staples and Ann Peebles and, my favorite women who would just make me want to get up and belt. And I tried to emulate those voices in the music that we were writing. That I had, in my songs, it was a little more folky, but the stuff that we were writing. And Christopher wrote a song having made, the writer, Christopher Ward, made a journey while filming a production for Elvis Presley in the 10-year anniversary of his death at a vigil around a busload of fans from Toronto. He documented the whole thing and was inspired on his journey, in and around Memphis, to write all the pictorial scenes and write the story of Elvis Presley. for me to sing. And he brought it back, and he knew I didn't like shuffles. The shuffle would have dated the song and would have made me just go, forget it.
I got you.
So he introduced the song and said, well, okay, look, here's a shuffle. I know I know it's your least favorite group, but here we go. Just hear me out, and don't say anything until I've sung it. So he started playing, it was just basic eighth notes, or quarter notes. And until I heard the song, and it was all I could do to hold back my excitement. And I remember initially feeling a great fear that I would lose the song to somebody else because it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't. But then I found out after the fact that I remember I'd heard rumors about Bette Midler saying how come she got that song, and I'd heard, and they'd got a girl in a country label to recut the song identically, and then made a video and made it identical. Just transplanted the bite from the horse, and copied it identically, and stuck it out without our knowledge to create. What I was told was a copycat version so that they'd make me like a Led Zeppelin of country. So they got some girl from Nashville who was a songwriter, a good songwriter, and they had her cut Black Velvet, or maybe it was her decision. I really don't know the secret, but they financed it they gave her the song to create a country hit rather than allowing me to have one, because they didn't think it was possible. No. And then Black Velvet did what it did, and then country crossed over, and then there was Shania Twain. You know what I mean? It sort of like had a ball bouncing factory, kind of the next step in the rung of the ladder.
Yeah.
They just didn't believe it would be a country hit, so they masterminded some plot to make some poor girl who was a great songwriter in Nashville, to cut Black Velvet, and she copied every phrase. Every phrase was copied, except, of course, it wasn't the same instrumentation, nor was it the same track. And it went to number 2 on the country charts. No, it went to number 1 on the country charts and then failed miserably as soon as it was found out she was a copycat. My Black Velvet went to only number 2 on the country charts, but number 1 on 4 of the charts. It was the first crossover song in that many categories since Elvis Presley himself.
Well, I mean, when you think of Black Velvet, I mean, the name Alannah Myles is who you associate that with. You know what I mean? There's no other person that can be associated.
That's been granted to me. That's a gift.
Yeah.
I never thought that 10 years ago. I was still calling my albums Black Velvet because I thought nobody knew who Alannah Myles was. Only 10 years ago, honestly.
Really?
8 years ago, I swear to God, I was naming my last record Black Velvet because or not my last, but 8 years ago, I made a record and I titled it Black Velvet because I thought people wouldn't know who I was, and then discovered only a couple of years later that I was embarrassed for having done that because people knew who I was.
Absolutely.
It was a new thing to me.
No, I mean, Black Velvet it's such a huge worldwide hit, though. I mean, it's still played regularly over the radio, you know, on even current stations. You know what I mean? I'm not just talking like the oldie stations or whatever like that. You know what I mean? Classic radio stations. This song is still played. I mean, I just don't see how you could have thought that.
Well, I never really thought. I thought people remembered the song, but because I faded away into the Netherlands, I was never a familiar name. So I never really accepted until only maybe in the last 3 or 4 years. Oh my goodness, you know, people are calling it Alannah Myles as Black Velvet. So I think that's really cool.
It is really cool. Now, Alannah, let's fast forward real quick. You know, everyone, like you said, like I said, knows your music. Everyone knows the hits you put out. Let's talk about Alannah Myles, the person. Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of people. Let's just put it like that.
You'd be surprised how many don't. That's the thing. I'm a real thing.
Well, we're going to change that one too. I mean, I don't know. You're really confusing me when you say that because I just don't see it. You know, I just don't see it.
Maybe I'm naive, but I swear to God, I don't think I have any kind of a presence out there beyond Black Velvet for some of the other songs that were far more successful in other countries.
Yeah, I know you've had like what a string of hits like in your native country of Canada, but of course in America, you know, you're best known for Black Velvet.
20 years ago.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
that was 20 years ago.
Well, it was 20 years ago, but certain songs withstand the test of time. I mean, that's just me. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Alannah. I know who you are.
You know what? I'm very lucky that people at radio were fans, because I tell you, that's been my saving grace. People at radio.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to people at radio being fans of my music, I have a career.
Well, you know, and like you said, you still have a career. Like, you know, if people didn't know who Alannah Myles was, do you really think you still would have that career right now?
I don't know. I'm not really able to register that they know Alannah Myles or that they just know one song.
I mean, okay, how about this? I mean, we're talking, you're in Canada, I'm in America. I mean, are you thinking America as far as people not knowing the Alannah Myles, or do you think of your native?
Definitely America. Yeah. Definitely America. In Canada, not so much.
I mean, in Canada, I mean, you're still out there performing, right? You're still out there doing duets with people and stuff like that, right?
Well, I haven't done. No, I haven't performed in a couple of years. I basically got tired of the grind, and I'm taking some time off to rest my body and my mind, and plan my next plan of attack in peace.
Yeah, I hear that. But what's a typical day like for you now, since you aren't into the music as much?
I laugh. It's not funny, but I'm mostly an accountant because I'm, wearing all the hats.
Yeah.
Managing all the, forums and placing all the materials and, hiring graphic artists, and I'm doing all the work single-handedly. I'm not with the record label.
Yeah.
I distribute on TuneCore digitally, and I do all of the rest myself.
Now, what about hobbies? I mean, do you have any hobbies that you kind of like lose yourself in?
Not ones that I would be willing to share. I mean,
and why is that?
Not really. I used to love horse riding, but it's been a while. Horses are expensive, and I haven't ridden in a while. Lately, I hang around with my little kitty cat. And, and I do a lot of knitting.
Yeah. Hey, that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're an animal lover. I'm an animal lover. I got a cat. I have 3 dogs. I have one that's a rescue. My wife's an animal lover. I mean, it's important. I mean, it says a lot about a person who treats animals well.
You know what? To be honest with you, my hobbies are probably more spiritual. I'm more into healing. I'm more into self-preservation. I'm more into spiritual. I really enjoy gospel music. So I'm searching for the church that has the best gospel group. So I can just go plunk myself and be a part of that. Great exchange with all those voices. That really is my kind of turn on.
Yeah, and I read somewhere. I read somewhere that you might be wanting to put out a gospel album. Is that correct?
Say that again?
I think I've read somewhere where you mentioned maybe wanting to do something in the gospel line.
Well, I'm not sure whether I could do a gospel record because it would be too profane. But I could do something that's soulful and could incorporate gospel in it, yes. Mm-hmm. I'm not very good with making one kind of record.
Yeah.
I never have, and I probably never will. I get too bored.
Yeah, I understand
Which
that.
is probably why my records are all over the map. They could never market me, and why I never condensed myself into a large, single-minded status. Often people will write in their comment boxes, why is she never bigger? And that's why.
Yeah.
I could not adhere to the formula. And if you don't adhere to the formula, it's not likely you're going to succeed.
And speaking of comment boxes and formula, are you a big social media fan? I mean, do you enjoy interacting with your fans through that medium, getting the instant feedback on pretty much anything?
Well, Twitter, I think, is foolish. It's just foolish. But I do enjoy Facebook because it allows me to have interaction I can control, and it allows me to keep in touch with my fans. If anybody ever wants to find out what's going on, they just have to visit, and they're going to get personal treatment. And it's really friendly, and it's really kind, and there's no haters.
Now, I'm going to have to ask you, because you put it out there, why do you hate Twitter?
Because it's for twits.
You just can't. Well, I understand where you can't really put your whole idea out there.
I can't say the word awesome. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not awesome.
I have a Twitter account myself for the show, but only thing I do on there, I put the replays of shows on there, but You really
I
can't
think
express yourself like you can on
because
Facebook.
it's a media-friendly situation, but I can't tell people that I just had a poop. Oh, this is where I wipe my butt. Oh, yeah, I just went to the dentist, had a tooth plucked. What? I can't do it. It's like I'm a very private person.
Mm-hmm.
I pick and choose when I like to share my moments.
And that's why you can't tell me your hobbies.
Say what?
And you're a very private person, and that's why you can't tell me your hobbies, right?
Well, not really. I don't want people to show up.
Yeah, I hear you.
I just kind of like to have. I'm very private, and no, you won't find a single thing about me in the last 15 years with dating or anything, and it's just not out there.
Now, do you ever have people come to you for advice on how to make it in the music industry? I mean, do you think it's more difficult now for an up and comer to make a career?
And I don't find a great deal. I did for a time, but people look at me like I'm some sort of a. I don't know what they think I can do. I guess they want the seal of approval, and I'm reluctant to give it because that's a great deal. It's not like somebody has to pay me for it. It's not like that. But first of all, I'm really critical. I'm super critical of my own talent and my own gifts. And I place that same critical quotient on anybody else. And, I'm forgiving because not everybody's going to be a superstar. But at the same time, I look for inspiration where brilliance lies. And not a lot of people that come to me are brilliant.
Oh yeah, you can't tell everybody they're good.
So you can't tell everybody they're good, and you also can't tell them they're brilliant when they're not. Mm-hmm. So I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. It's mostly my, that Canadian I'm sorry mentality. That just can't. I don't want to be put on the spot like that. That's why I could never do these shows. The voice of the. Not that they've asked me. Long ago, it might have been something in the air, but clearly it's not something I'm interested in.
Well, it's not fun to tell somebody they don't have what it takes.
No, I can't do that. I just can't do that. It's I lived in the land of rejection for so many years, and I had to rise above it. And now I like the friendly world I live in, where people just think they like what they hear and they like it. It's good. And if they don't like it, that's fine.
The friendly world with you just kind of just. Chilling out with you and your cat.
Well, I'm chilling out with me and my music. I've been writing, and I've got a backlog of material, and I'm sort of stepping forward now with after having learned a few technological ropes in terms of the way the internet works. It's quite a different kettle of fish now, which is really quite interesting. It's a whole new world now with the way artists are bought and sold. Mm-hmm. Very, very different. It's fan friendly.
It is fan friendly. I mean, you can pretty much find out any information you want about an artist. I mean, I'm in my 40s now. When I was in my 20s or whatever, we didn't have the means to do the things that they have today. And I'm like you as far as social media and stuff. I'm still learning everything.
I'm actually I'm adept at Facebook. I just don't like tuning in and letting people know my morning breath.
Yeah, I hear you. You're like, I just ate a bowl of cereal. Come on, get a grip. Anyway, whatever. And also, frankly, I don't feel I have that much to say. I mean,
a lot of people out there have large egos. They've got a lot of success, and they like getting stroked, and the adulation really appeals to them. And quite frankly, it really kind of turns me off. If you've got something to sell, get out there and go market it. No problem. But if you're lying low, healing away, and is building your craft and gaining insight into the decade and enjoying the process, you don't really want to be under the critical gun.
Now, you talking about writing your music right now. I mean, just because you're not out performing and stuff, do you have anything up your sleeve for the near future?
Probably about 20 more years of songs, but I just, don't want to. It's a lot of work. Since the last record, it's a lot of work to pump myself to get the funds in place and producer and all of that. And I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready schematically, I'm putting together the components, and I know what I want to do. But again, it's going to be a hodgepodge. It's just going to be. What I do is I record on one record of 12 songs, I'll record usually 3 or 4 groupings. They all have to fall within the category of the 3 groupings. So either in the folk category, like, pop, or in the blues category, or in the rock category. They all have to, and they can interlope between each category into the folk and country, but they all have to fit square into at least 3 and a maximum of 4 categories. Any more than that, and you're overloading the circuit. So all my records, you'll notice, and there's always a last song that's acoustic. It's just very different than the rest of the songs. So there's always, if I did 10 songs, then it'd be 9 songs and an odd man out.
Are you big on acoustic? Because that's my favorite type of music.
Yeah, it's my favorite too.
I mean, it's just personal.
It's
more personal.
And I'm not sure exactly what direction I want to go in. I know that people really like to hear me sing in a bluesy style. And you can't sing the same song for the rest of your life, but you can sing songs that are really well written with good melodies and strong hooks in your style of voice.
Mm-hmm.
So the trick is to stay true to yourself. The last record I did was a sort of a regurgitation of a record that I'd released and added a few singles and put Black Velvet back, a remake of the same song, so I'd own the masters and be able to shop them. And it was a challenge to recut the song identically, and very few people can tell it apart. So it was a challenge. It's not the same. The original is masterful. Nothing can top it. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Not even me.
Now, Alannah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it can't be done. I don't have any airs of grandeur.
Well, I mean, it's one of those songs like you said, Black Velvet. I mean, and I got a hint of this, what you said just a few minutes ago. Do you ever get tired of performing Black Velvet?
Only when I'm maybe not had enough sleep and the key's too high. You got that. It's a tough song to sing. You got to get down low in those guttural, low, verses, and then up the ladder in the choruses with a rasp in your voice, singing all those ee wee wee notes.
Yeah.
It got to sound pure, because without there's no harmonic. It's in a B flat minor, so there's nothing to root it. So unless there's a harmony that's singing pure in tune, there's only the two of you, and amongst all that space with that bass.
I hear you. Now, Alannah, is there anything you'd like to add that I might have left out or failed to mention? I mean, any words for your fans maybe that have purchased your music over the years and love what you do?
Well, I'm just very happy and grateful that I can celebrate my 25th anniversary year of the success of Black Velvet on the 25th Hour radio show.
Oh, that's awesome. I might use that.
Yeah, well, it just so perhaps I think the last thing I'd like to add, and you can add it or not, people have been very curious to know about my health, because there's all this internet garbage about me being injured from a car accident, which never happened. And yes, I was injured by too many chiropractic treatments, but I'm on the mend, and I'm doing much better. It's been an uphill battle, and I'm doing okay. I'm not out of the woods yet. I'm healing, and I'm happy. I'm working on my attitude, and one of these days I'm going to put that attitude into what it is I do and greet the world with, more of my artistry. I've not lost the plot, or at least I've not lost the urge.
Well, Alannah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be a part of my show.
Terrific. Thanks ever so much for asking, Rob.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.